June 8th.
And it's,
Excuse me,
he
this
passed
is
the
June
car
8th
on
town board meeting.
Sunday.
We all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicole, could we remain standing for our invocation?
Dear God, thank you for making it possible for us to get together for our monthly meeting, and thank you for keeping us all healthy throughout the coronavirus, and thank you for letting all these restrictions start to come off and let us all get back to normal. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call the regular scheduled town board meeting, it's called to order at 7:07. Sandy, could you please read the roll?
Councilman Cavaldi.
Here.
Councilman Jack Russo.
Here.
Councilman Gray.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mora.
Here.
Supervisor Esposito.
Present. Also present is our attorney, Gerard Parisi. Okay. Privilege of the floor. At every scheduled town board meeting, the public shall have the right to address the town board during the course of the meeting referred to as privilege of the floor. Members of the public should restrict their comments to items of town business, although there is no official time constraint. Speakers should be considerate of others so that all interested members of the public have an opportunity to be heard. There shall be one portion of the meeting dedicated to privilege of the floor near the beginning of each meeting. All remarks and questions shall be addressed to the board. No person shall enter into discussion with a person having the floor. Council members may address any comments during the portion of the meeting referred to as council member comments. Privilege of the floor is opened up at 7:08. Please state your name.
John Fisher from Muscleback Road. I was present at the last meeting and we discussed several topics that I'd like to touch on two briefly. First one is the use of the funds that the town will be receiving from the American Rescue Plan. And there was some discussion last time on this subject, perhaps you recall. And the thought was that there were a limited number of options and the board was leaning towards actually indicating that they were going to spend that money all on the water district. And the point I raised then was that that covered only a small amount of the town and it seemed like there were some other things that must be available. Well, I did take a copy of the rescue plan, did a little research on the subject, and I'm not the person that has all the ideas in the world, so I want to repeat my comment from last time that we should open this up to more people for input as to what sort of things this money should be spent on. But since I did have a chance to look at it, I came up with a couple suggestions I'd just like to share with you so you are aware that there are other ideas in the world. One of the things that was allowed was the expenditure on broadband service. As you know, many of our families with students spend a lot of time with students at home. Some of the less well-off families probably found it a stretch to afford broadband so their students could keep up with their schoolwork and perhaps either reimbursing or somehow working to reduce the payments that those families had to pay. And it might apply to elderlies also, the various unemployed. Another thought I had was one of the things that's allowed for is waste treatment. Now, the town has no centralized septic system, but we do have, every home has a septic system, and I know just from walking around different neighborhoods that some of them don't work as well as they could. And perhaps testing of septic systems and ordering or working with the families that have problems to try to upgrade them so that they're not leaking unpleasance into the local environment. That was idea 2. Idea 3 was, as you know, the town central water system is very localized, but perhaps it's looking towards the future. It'd be a good time to purchase a parcel of land at a very high altitude where in the future when the town gets to having central water around more of the town, having a water tower at a high altitude would alleviate a lot of problems with distributing water to many neighborhoods. So those are just a couple of ideas, and as I said, I think there's probably other people in the town that have other ideas, and it would be good to hear from them as well. That concludes my comments on the American Rescue Plan. But there was another subject that we covered that I wanted to comment on also. And that was, we had quite a lengthy discussion about installation of large solar farms. And one of the concerns that I brought up last time was that it seemed that it was possible that the town residents could benefit from having a large number or having solar farms in the township. And it wasn't something that anyone on the board, at least at the time, had much to say about, except they weren't sure that this was ever a thing. But it is a thing. And I looked it up, and there's quite a few townships where the town has, through their negotiations with the people installing solar collectors, get a reduced rate for the town residents, or at least a portion who have to live near the solar farm. And in fact, I found an advertisement from a little company that some of you may know called National Grid, that they actually were advertising in 2019 solar without rooftop panels, just by signing up with them, that the local residents could get something like that, a discount on their price. And I think it makes a lot of sense for us to benefit from having these solar panels in our community, rather than putting these things all over the place and sending all the electricity down to New York City. As it happens, in doing some research on this, and I can leave a list with anyone who's interested or send it to you, there's quite a few places where the township, or I don't want to say just the township, the local government, whatever, whether it be a village or town or whatever, made an agreement with somebody installing some generation equipment that would benefit the locals. And one of them that I found was a little town called Roxbury up in Maine. And as it happens, one of my college roommates worked for Central Maine Power, recently retired, I might add. And I talked to him about it, and he said, oh yeah, and this is a quote from my friend in Maine, the residents of Roxbury get a break on their electricity because the generator picks up part of their cost. And this was just a negotiation between the village of Roxbury and the people. But there's quite a few examples out there, and I would encourage the town, I mean, you guys are setting the rules for who's coming in and putting these things in here. And you could say, look, you're going to put this in our community, let's give our residents a break on their electricity cost. And just, so that pretty much wraps up what I have to say on that subject as well. But I did want to add one thought. I can't remember exactly when it was, maybe some of the town board members recall, but probably 30 or 40 years ago, we reevaluated all our properties in the town, reassessed, so we could modernize the assessment. And I remember coming to a town meeting then where one of the town board members said that the biggest land usage in our town was power line right-of-ways. And it seems if we've got these power lines running across our town, and you know, if you've driven by one, you notice that it isn't always pristine farmland or forest or anything. It ends up being like a clear-cut swath across the neighborhood or across the town. Why don't they put the solar collectors there? Because you wouldn't have to wire to anyone. You got the power line right over your head. Just an idea. But I'll leave that with the town. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Any others? Paul, you got anything? the privilege of the floor at 7:16. Department committee reports. Highway, Nick is not here tonight. There's really nothing going on with the highway department. We have been looking at repaving one more road that needs to be done up in Willow Run. We haven't gotten a price on that yet, so don't know if we're gonna be able to do it. Lacking the funds for replacing the roof, as everybody can see. So other than that, we're probably gonna have to clear the debris from the catch basins in our roads sometime this year. They're plugged, and Rotterdam or the county is going to help us with that. So we don't know what the cost would be with that, but other than that, there's nothing else with the highway department. Water department, May 2021, 95% of the water meters have been read. With the help of Rick, Gene, and Bob, these readings were completed within 2 weeks. We'll be ready for billing next week. We had no communication failure, which resulted in the system going down, so it had to be addressed. We had one communication, excuse me. The Gifford Church Road Booster pump station still has leaks, and we'll be setting up a time for them to be repaired. The Rooter Drive tank tower continues to leak. A schedule will be developed to have the Rooter Drive and Settles Hill Road Tower repaired. We had 0 water breaks, main breaks this past month. We also had numerous maintenance projects, including chlorine pump repaired by replacing the foot valve. Respectively submitted, West Blessing. Fortunately, we didn't have any water main breaks. We did have 17 last year, which put an awful strain on the water department and the coffers of the water department. So we're dealing with that. The town board has been dealing with that this past month, trying to come up with a solution as to that, how we're going to continue to maintain the system. Okay, is there any questions on the water system? Doug, Nicole, Jim? Okay, code enforcement, Tom Verini. Oh, I didn't read all of the what the water department had over here. I didn't see that either. Sorry about that. They had gallons pumped 2,153,100, maximum daily use 119,600. Minimum daily use is 21,900, daily average 69,500, 95% of the meters have been read. I just read that. We had one communication failure, read that. Gifford Church, I read that, so we're all set with that. Okay, building inspector's report. Total permits 11, permits issued 11, permits inspection fees collected $672.60. Building inspections 9, zoning review 2, fire inspection 0, final building inspections 1, certificate of occupancy 1, bank deposit report $672.60. Check to supervisor's account 00, checkbook balance as of June 18, 2021, $850.74. Activities in zoning 1, working on planning and zoning as needed, working on permit, final inspection as needed, reviewing plans as needed, Thomas Verini, building inspectors. Any discussion on that? Ben? Jim? Doug? Nicole? Okay. Ben, you're up.
It's been quiet, haven't had any calls or missing dogs other than the one from last month. Never got any good news on whether or not she found that dog. That was up on Kelly Station Road by Skyline. And it was a spaniel, but it's been over a month, so not sure what happened to the dog. There is gonna be rabies clinic. I don't have the dates on me, but if anybody's interested in a free rabies clinic for the county, just look up Schenectady County on their website. You can Google that and then search for a rabies clinic. Get the information you need on that. And just a reminder for people, anybody that may hear this video, is to make sure that your dogs are licensed. A lot of times when they're not, they say, I didn't know they had to be licensed. So, gotta be licensed and rabies. That's it.
Any questions for Ben? Doug? Will? Ben? Okay, do we have a report from the judge, Sandy?
No.
Okay, buildings and grounds over here, as you know, we're replacing the roof. Lowest estimate came in, and it was $48,000. So, they're replacing the roof because we had leaks in the roof, couldn't wait any longer. We patched it last year, by 1 year. They should be completing the project probably within the week. So, other than that, we do have something coming up over here to repair that line out there, but we'll get to that later on in the meeting. Everything has been good over at the state police. There's been no complaints. And as you can see, we're trying to maintain the grounds as best we can with the limited funds we have. So, other than that, we did place all of our flags up around the gazebo and the entranceway coming in for Memorial Day, and they'll be up until after Labor Day. So, we did have our air conditioning units went down, 2 of them on this end of the building and the courtroom here, and Eastern Refrigeration has been over the past 2 days. They have to come back tomorrow. They finally found the root cause of why the breakers were blowing, and he's coming over tomorrow to install some new lines out to the compressors out in the back. And they did get this one operating for us today. I know everybody wouldn't want to sit here in 95-degree weather without air conditioning, so he did make sure that that was up and operational for this meeting tonight. But he will be back tomorrow. I have no idea what that cost is going to be, but hopefully it'll be repaired, and the other end of the building will. This end of the building has been operational, has not gone down. It was the 2 compressors on this side of the building that we've had the trouble with, so. Should be repaired tomorrow, hopefully. Any questions? Ben? Jim? Okay.
Is there any update from the assessor?
Pardon?
Is there any update from the assessor?
No. No, he hasn't given us any update. Oh, he did tell me that during their grievance day, they didn't have any grievances.
Yeah.
Nobody came, so apparently everybody's happy with their assessment at this time. And you did read what I had sent you, everybody to the board, about they're picking out properties for a reassessment. You got that,
Yeah.
everybody got that? That the county had sent, the assessor sent it to me, that they're singling out properties to look at. What our assessment rate is gonna be, it's at 30% now. I don't know what that means. He really didn't know. He said it shouldn't affect us if they lower the assessment rate. He said worst case scenario, if they lower it, it shouldn't affect our assessments, but who knows what that means.
You're talking about the equalization rate,
Yes,
30%.
the equalization rate is at 30, and they're probably looking to lower that. I don't know.
Lower it from 30% down.
Yes, that's what he's claiming it's gonna be, but as the assessments go up, the prices of the property are going up. I just hope that the state doesn't come in and say that all properties in the state have to be reassessed don't know what that means. And I got a feeling that's not too far off.
This was initiated by the state, right?
Yes. We're singled out this year for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they singled out towns to look at their
Well,
assessments.
it's from the state, they wanna help.
Absolutely, we know, they're right here to help.
They're here to help.
And they're here to help.
Should we get an update from him? Because I know when we hired him, you know, the expectation was that we'd get some more updates.
Yeah, I'll get on them about that, but like I said, I sent that email around to everybody, so you know what's going on with it. So, he, hopefully, doesn't lead to anything, but you never know in these situations. Like I said, I got a feeling that the state somewhere down the line is gonna ask all of the towns and villages and cities to do a revalue. It's been, as he stated before, it's been 30 years since we've done it, or 25 years. Meeting minutes, or public hearings, we have none. Meeting minutes is hereby resolved, the meeting minutes of May 11, 2021, regular town board meeting are approved or as amended. Discussion,
I'll make a motion.
is there a second?
I'll say,
Sandy?
Councilman Pavoldi?
yes.
Councilman Jack Russo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mora?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Platterkill Fire Department. I see Wesley left. Is he in the other room?
He might be in the other room still.
Yeah, if you could ask him if he's here. If he's not, that's all right. I'll try to explain it as much as I can.
This resolution is just the joint hearing, right, between
Well,
Princetown and Rotterdam?
let's just get into this in a minute. Let me just see if he's here. He can explain it better than I can. I know he was here earlier. I don't know if
He
he's
was
still
here.
I know he said he was coming in.
He was here when I got here. But it was 30 minutes ago.
Well, I'll try to explain it as much as possible. We discussed this, the Platterkill Fire Department is going from a fire protection district to a commission district, which means that they're asking to be controlled by the commissioners. All of our towns representing, servicing the fire departments. Here's Wesley. He can, I'll let him explain this.
What did I have to explain?
The
Fire
fire, the
district.
difference between a fire protection district, commission district, and why Platterkill wants to do this. As everybody knows, Wesley's the fire warden in Pine Grove, so he understands this a little bit more than I do. Fire protection district as opposed to a commission district.
Fire Protection District has to have a contract with every town that it serves.
Speak up just a little, so.
In that fire department, Fire Protection District is run by a board of directors. The board of directors draws up a contract, brings it to each town, and then each town that it serves has to accept their contract. So anytime they need monies or anything like that, they have to approach the town boards in order to receive monies. Even though they have a budget, that budget is set and has to be accepted by the board. They know what they need. Unfortunately, a lot of the town boards do not understand what they need. So that's the bad thing about a fire protection district. A commissioned fire district is run by 5 commissioners that are involved in the fire district itself. Everything is handled within that fire district. The budget is set by the commissioners. It doesn't have to be accepted by the town board of the towns that it serves. So the people that are there running the fire district, meaning the 5 commissioners and the officers of that fire district, commissioned fire district, are able to make the decisions and everything for that fire district without going to a town board. The budget for those fire districts still have to be voted on, by the residents of that fire district, not by somebody outside it. I'm not picking on anyone in this room or on the board, but when you're talking about Platterkill's fire district, there's only one person on the board that's in Plotter Hills Fire District. He's more familiar with what happens around his fire district than the rest of the town board, because he lives there. So it's a lot easier for that fire district to communicate with its residents to what they need as compared to communicate with a town board that is somewhat unfamiliar what happens up there. That's the easiest way to explain it in layman's terms.
Do you think it's a good idea?
I think it's a great idea because it's very hard for them to get funding. They can control what they need. I mean, unfortunately, you've got the preserve up there in Rotterdam. I understand it's in Rotterdam, but that's a very sore subject. But if they need something, they have to up the budget in order to get it for themselves. Unfortunately, with what happens now as a fire protection district, they're a year behind what they actually need in monies, because they have to approach the town board, whether it's Rotterdam or Princetown, in order to make up what they lost the previous year, year and a half. They can do it that particular year. So realistically, with a fire protection district, it could be up to a year and a half behind to the actual expenditures that actually happen. Because they have to approach you prior to that time, meaning the town board, in order to up their budget.
Everybody understands that because we do vote on their budget every year. We did talk about this at a meeting, I don't know, when it first came up, and I think they came and spoke with us about it, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been a while though.
Yeah, they did come and they said, you know, asked if we were in favor of it, and I think the general consensus of the board was that we were in favor of them becoming a commission district. This resolution over here states that we're supposed to have a public hearing with Rotterdam, and Rotterdam hasn't committed to anything so far. We've voiced our support for this, and Rotterdam hasn't commented, and they haven't agreed on a joint public hearing, because it has to be a joint public hearing between Princetown and Rotterdam for this to go through. But Rotterdam may be dragging their feet, or I have no idea, but I think everybody on the board is, our consensus is we're approving that, am I correct? Yes, do I have to read the whole resolution here?
Nope, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Sandy?
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes.
Just backwards, sorry, I didn't make up the resolution. Thank you. Councilman Gray?
Yeah.
Councilman Russo?
Yes.
Councilman Laura?
Yes.
Councilman Pavolli?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Ed's Landscaping, this is for the ramp out here. Since the Vietnam Wall came to our town, we put this ramp in over here, and as you can see, it's become overgrown and not in the best of shape. Nick and I, we put in a new line to eliminate the National Grid's extra payment that we have to have for the entranceway to the town hall, Princetown Plaza Road, and tied it into the town hall. And we put LED lighting in ours to eliminate that bill. So we have to correct this, it's overgrown, and we have to get some seating in. And we did have 2 bids come in on it. The lowest bid was $1,000 to do it. I think that we should proceed with this, in my opinion, because it does look like a mess out here. And it's certainly not, doesn't look good for our residents and the appearance of the town hall. So, before I read the resolution, is there any questions on it?
The bids are in our pile, right, yeah.
We had dabs, I think it was 1,200 or something.
So topsoil and grade, they're gonna level that area, is that the plan?
Yes.
Take that ramp out of there?
No, he's not gonna take the ramp out. What it was when we dug up, and all of that debris, it has to be leveled and clear up the ramp.
And then it's gonna reseed it, or?
I don't know what it's about, reseeding the ramp, but try to get it down so that we can mow it as opposed to the way it is right now.
Yeah, which we can't mow it right
No,
now.
can't even get in there because of it's too rough in there. I mean, I think we should do it. I mean, we gotta keep the appearance up with the town hall. We all know that it's hard to keep this up over
It's the
here.
first thing Hannah noticed when we pulled in, she said, gee, that looks terrible.
It
But
does,
she's not in here all the time like I am.
it does. It absolutely does. I mean, I don't like spending money like this, but, especially when we're doing this roof over here at that cost, with no town tax and everything, we do have to watch every penny that we spend. But on the same token, we can't let this place look like it is. I don't know, you got any comments?
I'm okay with it.
Ben?
I bush hogged it for how many years?
I know. What are you thinking, Jim?
Well, I mean, like, we can't let it look like that. I mean, we can't have this town hall look like a haunted house. And, it looks terrible. It really does. It looks unkempt, it looks sloppy, and, it's a reflection on us, really. So we gotta do it. We don't have any choice. And the only other option is to do what we've done in the past, which, it gets to be a little bit too much, like I could come up with my loader and work on it and everything else, but, we've done that many times in the past. We just can't keep doing things like that. We're getting older, we just can't do it all. Doug's done a million things up here, Nick's done a million things. And we just can't rely on all of us guys doing that. We've got to, $1,000 is not that much money.
Ben?
I agree with Jim.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Cavoli?
Yes.
Councilman Caruso?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mora?
Yes.
Councilman Gray? Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. General funds claims. Is hereby resolved, the town board approves claim number 97 through 121 in the amount of $46,176.30. Discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Is there a second?
Councilman Cavoli?
Yes.
Councilman Caruso?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mora?
Yes.
Councilman Gray? Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Water funds claims. Hereby resolved, the town board approves claims number 71 through number 85 in the amount of $36,659.40. Discussion?
What are we doing about the money issues?
Pardon?
What are we doing about the money issues within the water department?
Well, we're gonna get into that. Discussion on this? Is there a motion? A second?
I'll second.
Councilman Cavoli?
Yes.
Councilman Caruso?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mora?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes, resolution passed. Trust and agency claims, is hereby resolved, the town board approves claim number 6 in the amount of $1,500. Discussion? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sandy?
Councilman Cavoli?
Yes.
Councilman Caruso?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mora?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yes.
Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Okay. council members' comments and concerns. I'll bring this up. This is just for discussion amongst the town board, but it was brought up by our, one of the residents. It's about the solar. I inquired with the town, or with the county. Jim and I met with the county. One of the discussions was, how do we go about lowering our rates with solar if they're in the town? And as what I was told is that any resident that wants to apply for a reduction in their electric bill, they should contact the solar company and they would receive a 10% discount. But they would have to buy their power through the solar company. It's got nothing to do with the town. They said it's up to the individual landowner or resident of the town to do this. We're not involved with that at all. So we only have one project that's in place, and the other project on Reynolds Road has not gone through. There's not enough power up there to support a solar factory. I don't call them farms, I call them factories. So that was the comment. Am I correct in this, Jim?
Mhm.
That was one of the discussions. The other discussion was expanding was brought up about expanding the water district on, to other residents. About a year ago, the town board agreed to hire our town engineer to do a study to provide water up on the northern end with a tank, and the cost of the residents was so astronomical that we didn't even want to bring it to the residents to do this. It was for Willow Run and the surrounding areas up there. And the reason being is the medium income is too high in Princetown to get any type of a grant to do this. Their tax rates would have been very, very high. Of course, it was brought up at this, because we did bring this up at this meeting, spread this out with a bond, but the taxes being what they are, the residents, I don't think up there would have ever gone for it. We still have that. Our town engineer has that, what the rates would be. I did send it to a couple of the residents up there that had asked about it, and they were not in favor of it at all. So I would like nothing more than to provide water up to the residents up in the north end. That's why I suggested that the town board approve of our town engineer to do a study on it. But we already did this. This was about a year and a half ago. And if the residents want to pay for it, I'm fine with it. We did pass a resolution that we weren't going to allow outside water districts. I don't see how we can do that with the district, with our water system being in the shape it is, and providing water to out-of-resident districts without providing water to our residents of the town. I'm not in favor of giving water, and every time we have done this, we've had nothing but trouble with it. People do not want to pay. We already did this on Windy Hill Road, that extension down through there. We did get a call, our water commissioner got a call, somebody else wants water down there a mile down the road farther. And I told our commissioner not to even discuss this with him, and apparently we got a call from our senator that just got elected, and she was not too happy about this. But we can't take on more water runs and start worrying about maintaining another line when we have all these troubles with ours right now. 17 water main breaks in the past year. There's no way that we can afford to take on more water lines and improve this district without providing water to the north end. Was opposed to it. Our town board has been opposed to doing this, and if we're going to provide water to residents, they have to be within Princetown from here on in, not out of district use for one or two houses. That ends up costing us more money. We already had a water main break down there, so any of the money that we got, we never even recouped that, just from the water main break. So I'm opposed to it, and our town board has been opposed to it, and I think it's a good policy. Let's take care of our own residents before we start worrying about other out-of-district residents. I don't know if anybody's got any comment about that, but.
Well, just to clarify a little bit, the capital expenditure of actually laying the pipe, that winds up getting attached to the mortgage. People pay for a couple of years, that's what's happened to us. And all of a sudden, they say, well, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Or I'm going to go back to my well, or whatever. And all of a sudden, they stop paying. That does not stop the liability of whatever money was borrowed to put the line in, which then becomes our problem. This is the reason why we don't want to do this. We don't want to accept liability because oftentimes that liability is not fulfilled by the homeowner.
We do have people that have owed us $2,700 down on the end of the town that we haven't even gotten the money for, as far as I know. Sandy, did we get that $2,700? The one that they owed us $2,700?
Yes, that was the one that came in.
We did get it,
Oh,
finally?
Yes,
Yes.
that lady did come in.
So that's, and am I correct in this, Wesley?
Yeah,
You got
we-
any comments about that? You're into the water department here.
I mean, the resident that called Senator Hinchy's office, I will reiterate, the new line would be over 1.5 miles long and 1.5 miles for 2 residents. It would take forever for them to pay for it if they were gonna spend the money for the infrastructure. And at the same time, it's 1.5 miles more pipe that we would end up taking ownership of. And once we take ownership of it, we have to maintain it. We can't even maintain what we presently have. So until we can get ahead of what we have now, I can't see doing anything. We've got to repair what we have now before we start taking on any more.
My comment to Wesley today was, tell the senator over there if she can come through with $2.5 million to replace all of the lines that we have in our town. Then we'll consider doing it. And how many miles of pipe do we have to replace, Gus?
About 27 miles.
27 miles. We're only gonna continue to have these water main breaks because the system was never installed properly. Am I correct, Doug?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we can't go after the person that installed it because they're out of business. And it's too late now.
Should have went at the engineering firm when it started, but it never happened.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, you wanted to know about the waters. Here's the problem. Right now, we have $5,000 left in our water department. That's to pay our 2 employees and our bookkeeper until we get money coming in from the water meter readings, which are due August 1st. If we collect everything that is owed to us, it'll be $175,000. I'm told over there we'd be lucky if we collect 140 of that. And we owe Lane Pipe $27,000. We owe different vendors that have been repairing our lines. We owe Larner for 3 water main breaks. He's very good. He doesn't ask for the money. The last 3 water main breaks haven't been paid. What are you estimating, Wes, it's gonna be?
Well, even if they're $5,000 a piece, that's $15,000 for 3.
That's $15,000. We have repairs that have to be made on the Gifford Church.
Gifford Church Road booster pump station has got 4 leaks in it right now. We put it off and it's getting bad enough now where we either have to do something.
And how long has this been leaking?
Probably 3 or 4 months now. It's getting worse.
And we just repaired Reuter Drive.
We just repaired the leak at Reuter Drive. We switched that over from copper pipe to Schedule 80 PVC to try to eliminate the problems we've had there. We're doing the best we can to eliminate the problems in the future.
And we still have the water tank that's leaking on Reuter Drive. That has been leaking for years. We're pushing our luck with that.
And that's a big project, that's
a
over
big project.
$100,000.
That's well over $100,000 to repair that tank.
And we gotta do it all with $5,000 in our account.
Now, Wesley can you explain what has to be done when we repair that line? It has to be, explain what has to be
And
done.
that tank, the tank is glass lined, and unfortunately, there was a mixer down on the base of the tank to keep the water from freezing and freezing temperatures. It did break at some point in time.
How long has that been broke?
I don't know, it was prior to me being here. It happened under the previous water administration. I don't know how long it's been broke. What we've done to eliminate that problem at the time being is make the tank level fluctuation a little bit greater in order to keep the water from freezing in it. And that it has worked for the past 2 years, but there should be a bubbler installed in that tank to keep anything from freezing. What has happened in that prior to this, the last 2 years, is ice formed in the tank, fell in the tank, and scraped the glass lining off the inside. We've got pictures from the inspection of that tank approximately 18 months ago. There are scrapes through the glass lining. You can see where the steel of the tank is leaking, or excuse me, is rusting. And there are 1, possibly 2 leaks in the joint approximately 90 feet at the top of the tank, or near the top of the tank, 10 to 15 feet at the top of the tank. Whether it's washers behind the bolts that hold the different sections of the tank together, or is it the seal between the sections, we aren't sure. But that all needs to be addressed, or it's going to get worse and you could possibly have a catastrophic failure within time. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been leaking. At least, to my knowledge, it's been at least the last 2 years. And we've been addressing the problems that we've had, meaning no well rehabilitation. The pumps were still the original pumps that were in the wells. But when you go back to Lane, the granite company, Lane Christensen, we had to rehab the wells. I don't remember if it was in the last water report or not, but the one well, there was 3.5 feet of sediment in the screen in the bottom in the last 20 years. The other screen was over 80% plugged. We went from 130, 140 gallon a minute production over the one well down to 105, 107 gallon a minute. And something had to be done. In the time that first well was being rehabbed, we were running the second well to sustain the system. Within that week and a half's time, the second well went from about 130 gallons a minute down to 110 gallons a minute. That's when the second well started to plug, because it was being run all the time. These things need to be kept up every few years, meaning approximately every 5 years. They should go down in with and TV it, closed circuit TV, and view everything. That all costs money. This hasn't been done over the last 20 years, but that's something that I have started putting together. Every 5 years, we're gonna do both the wells. We're gonna have to, go down, see what they look like. Do they need to be rehabbed? If not, maybe refurb one every 10 years. That way you're on a rotating schedule, so you don't get hit with a big bill like this of $100,000 to redo both or rehab both wells. But unfortunately, that's what's been happening in the water department. And unfortunately, nothing was done with the wells, nothing was done with the tanks, and we're hit with a big bill in a matter of a couple of years.
The bottom line is, we're in big trouble with our water system. Lou and I spent last week 3 days making every effort in the world to try to find a resolution. I personally spent 3 hours applying to the Treasury for that COVID relief money. After 3 hours, I finally got to speak to somebody who told me oh, by the way, you're a small town, you're under 50,000, you don't apply to Treasury. Your money has already been transferred to the state. You have to go to the state. I spent another 3 hours trying to figure out how to get the money from the state. Couldn't figure it out. Lou said, why don't we go to our engineer who has a grant writer? He might be able to figure it out. So we called him up, we go to Albany, we sat down with him. He worked on it for an hour, he couldn't figure it out. So finally, I called the Association of Towns, and they said, oh yeah, the state's got the money, but they have no mechanism set up whereby you can apply for the money. They haven't got around to that yet, maybe 8 weeks before they even get to that. So this thing has been a nightmare. We've been pulling our hair out, doing everything we can think of. We met with the county to see if there's anything they could do. Lou met with Paul Tonko, who's a heavy hitter with the water infrastructure on a federal level. What did he suggest? That we go and...
He said Ags and, what is it?
Ag and Markets
Ag
has
and
a
Markets.
program that the town board may be able to apply.
Wesley was on the Zoom meeting with us when we did this with Paul. I mean, this town board did not ask for this. And you know what I was told? They said more often than not, water districts in small towns end up going bankrupt. Because when they put them in, they never envision what the maintenance cost is gonna be down the road. It's new at the time, and they never put anything aside to maintain the system. So as what happened after 20 years, we get stuck with it. And it's no reflection on any member of this town board, because we weren't here when this was put in. And not saying anything about the previous administrations, but that was never looked at. It was nice that everybody wanted the water, but you have to look forward, is how you're gonna maintain it. And for a small town with 300 people on this water system, try to maintain this when the system wasn't put in properly is just, it's beyond our how we're supposed to maintain it. We do have an avenue, according to Angelo Santa Barbara's office, that we can apply for an emergency funding with no interest to carry us over, to repair this. This water tower, we're gonna put it off until the spring. We could never get it repaired now. Everything is COVID and nobody wants to do anything right away. So even if we wanted to do it today, we probably couldn't get it scheduled till next spring. Am I correct in that, Wes?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to him, I've got to call him again to see when we get it scheduled. But I don't want to schedule it until I know that we've got the monies to pay for it. So if we have a lead on some revenue, we can possibly get on the list, but right now, there's 4 to 6 months out.
So this is an emergency loan. This is an emergency zero-interest loan, and what our thinking is, we can use that loan to bridge the gap between now and the time that we get our COVID relief money. Now, the specifications for using that money are very, very strict. We read it, we attended a seminar for an hour and a half about how to use that money. Lou and I came away with the same thing. Basically, it's either water or sewer. Now, there are some other things, as Mr. Fisher indicated, but I personally don't want to start doing subjective analysis. Oh, you need $100 to help pay for your broadband? Okay, we'll write you a check for $100. I don't want to get involved in that. I don't want to go down that road, because now you're starting to analyze people's personal finances and what have you. They told us that at the seminar too. And Lou and I both said we don't want to get involved in that.
If you're below a certain income threshold, they have low-cost, high-speed internet. The state passed something recently.
They tried to, I went up to a meeting when were discussing broadband up in Duanesburg, when the county was up there. And nothing ever came of that, to supply all of Duanesburg with broadband, because they're in a different situation than we are. A lot of the people, you said you have files up there.
We do. I don't know why up where I live, but.
And you're in where I am.
Reynolds Road, yeah.
So,
At least
I don't know. But, I mean, this is just, like I said, we did not ask for this. You know, everybody on this town, but we're saddled with trying to rectify the problem. And you don't think that this is a trying time for us when we have to do this? You know, I don't know what to say over here. I know, you know, I'm paying for the infrastructure. I live on this end of town, but I'm not hooked up to the water, neither is Doug. I still operate off my well.
I am hooked up on it, and my well is actually out of service, so if the water system goes defunct, I have no water. So I obviously don't wanna see that happen. And you know, Lou and I have been working on this nonstop. The two of us wake up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning with headaches. You know, we call each other at 6 o'clock to see who had a worse headache. And we're working on this stuff all day. And it's exasperating, especially when, you know, you spend hours and hours with the federal government and nobody lays out anything simple. In other words, there's not a website that says, oh, by the way, if you're a town of 3,000 people, make sure you go to the state. And then the state should say, yes, we have the money, but we have nothing set up. There's nothing like that. Nothing like that. You gotta find it all out after hours of aggravation.
And my first comment when I heard this was, you know that the state is gonna hold this money for as long as they can before they start distributing it. Being in a position that the state is in with their finances, they're not gonna just start doling this money out. As a matter of fact, even towns that have a village in it, when they finally disperse it, it's gonna go to the town first, and then the town is supposed to give it to the village, not affecting us, but I'm talking Glenville and Scotia. Scotia is a village within Glenville. They have to disperse the money. And there's no towns that I know of around here that are over 50,000 people. So that just about limits it to everything. I don't know if the city,
Will be the end of the total poll.
you know, I know Rotterdam doesn't have it. I thought they were over 50,000, but they're not. They're under 50,000. Glenville is, Niskayuna is. Everybody, I can't think of any towns up north that are over 50,000. So maybe there are down in Long Island and around New York City, Westchester County, but none around here.
When we basically hit the brick wall, we called a number of officials from the county, and they were good enough to meet with us. What morning was that? It doesn't matter. They came down and met with us. And they gave us some ideas, and they gave us some encouragement. We were told that the best way to go to manage this is to attempt to borrow emergency funds, let that bridge the gap between the time we get the money from the COVID relief funds. So that made sense. The county attorney was also encouraging in this respect. He said, you're gonna get this money, and there may be more money down the road. As we know, there's another infrastructure bill being negotiated. So, you know, we're hoping that somehow or another we're gonna be able to get through this crisis. And it is difficult. It's, Paul?
And then what?
You're exactly right, and that's exactly what I said to everybody over here. That's exactly what I said. This does not solve the problem. It's all it does is kick it down the road, just like I said to Wesley, to tell our senator, we need $2.5 million to redo this whole system. Probably more, probably more, because we're only gonna continue to have.
I'm asking the question because this was brought up 10 years ago, and it was ignored. Not you people. Doug, you were on the board, and Doug has talked about this for 10 years, and so has everybody else. And you constantly do it. No town tax, no tax, can't spend any money. You guys had a responsibility, the town board, not you guys. I'm not singling personality, that's not my point. The people of this district voted to have that water district put in place. And it was the town board's responsibility to make sure that it was properly managed. And they ignored it. We should have been raising the rates every year as it went along, and they ignored it. Now, what are you going to do forward? You
That's-
got
that's
it,
the
I brought it up back in, I brought it up back in March,
unless-
Louis. I brought it up back in March. You need a committee of people that are committed to work on this. You guys shouldn't have to sit there and wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. You need some other minds, you need some other people to get
The
involved.
solution to the problem is, you have to have money to redo these lines. Am I correct, Wesley? We're only gonna have this problem
It's gonna
over
keep
and over
continuing.
again. If our elected officials, Tonto and whoever it is in there, our senators, are not gonna come forward and help us out with this, and help us refinance this to redo these lines, we're only gonna continue to have this problem.
But I think what Paul's saying is we've got to come up with a plan.
They're not gonna finance it unless you come up with a plan to go forward.
So you don't have the same
So
situation.
we are.
And nobody wants to think about that.
When we met with Clark, when he was still the water commissioner,
Am I wrong?
well, when we met with him, he kind of laid out all of the expenses moving forward. Now, 17 water main breaks, had he anticipated that? Probably not.
No.
But he told us, you've got to take the rates from what they are now and raise them to 275, which is what we did. He said, if you do that, and then you put in the increase, which we did, there's also an increase built into the law now, so that every year it goes up a little bit, it will become sustainable. 5 years out, I think, is maybe what he
But
said.
it was a 5-year plan of what we had.
So we met with him and we went through all of that process. Now, all of these, I mean, I don't want to say unforeseen expenses have come up, but they have. And so, you know, we put the steps in place to kind of rectify the situation, but things keep coming up, which is what the problem that we have now, which is why we've got to do some of these last minute things to raise funding.
Oh, I completely get it.
You know, so we did, we met with him, I mean, he laid it out, he's like, I don't know if it was him that worked in Rotterdam or one of the
Yeah,
others,
he
but they
did.
explained it. He said, this is what we did in Rotterdam. We built up X amount of money so that when stuff comes up, we're prepared for it. Now, what they should have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we can't fix that at this point. We had thought we were handling the situation when we met with them.
We didn't plan on both wells. The original plan was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we were gonna refurb the wells as needed. Hopefully, we'd have a longer period of time. Unfortunately, the first one was dwindling. We knew that. That was on a plan for this year. The second one wasn't on the plan. Unfortunately, while the first one was being rehabbed, the second one went down. So we lived through and it says, as soon as you can get to the second one, we need to do something.
So we,
I mean,
No question
no,
about it.
we tried. I mean, we were shown the math, we were told this is what you
We
need to
did
raise.
exactly what he recommended.
Yeah, and
That's it.
unfortunately, this is what came up, and we're running out of options. If
Well,
we don't get funding, I mean, the other options to raise rates 500 of you can't do that, you know what I mean?
Well, actually, you
Why
can.
can't you?
You
Why
can.
can't you? A gallon of water today, you're.
Regardless,
paying-
I don't wanna argue about
No,
should it
you're
be cent a gallon or whatever.
0.003 for 50.
We went from 100 and whatever it was, 125 to 270 or whatever, 100.
156 to 275.
So it's almost 100% increase
You
already
should
to
charge
try
$1 a day right there.
to make up the gap from the
Bottled
past.
water costs
But I
$1
agree with
a
you,
day.
rates should have been going up for years.
We can't take, that's water under the bridge, there's nothing we can do about it.
That's the problem we
but
have right
from
now,
this-
is we're
from
running
this-
out of
But
options.
from this point forward, and Louis, I asked you this question back in, I think it was the 1st of March, about the assessment. Our tax rate went to 21%, and I asked you how that happened. And you remember the answer you gave me? You probably don't. You called Isla on the phone, and she said it had something to do with somebody's assessment down the road.
Yeah, we lost two big cases.
That was a bald-faced lie.
Well, that's what
that's
I
not-
told us.
That's not enough to raise the assessment on our water district infrastructure 21%. No way in hell, Jim, none. That has to be corrected. That's not where it's supposed to be coming from. We all figured it out, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a mix
You
between.
guys found out that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah, some of it was maintenance and then
It
some
was
of
maintenance.
Some of it
We
was
asked if it was
raise-
maintenance, and we were
reassessment.
told it had to do with an assessment adjustment. That's
That's what Riley
baloney.
told us, right?
It was a mix between the two, I thought.
Partially, but it didn't belong there. Again, that's what's gotta be straightened out before we go forward. And they're not gonna give you any money unless you've got a plan written down in place that makes sense.
The reality is,
The reality is, we cannot allow this water district to fail now.
no, we can't. And this is, to be honest with you, this is largely a statistical issue. We're 3 standard deviations off for repair work. Now, when you have anything that's 3 standard deviations out of whack, there's no way you can even anticipate that, and nobody did. The repairs are just far beyond the norm. There's a norm, then there's 1 standard deviation past the norm, then there's 2, then there's 3. That's where we're headed. We're so far out of whack, we just simply could never have anticipated this.
That's right, and I'm not
We're gonna
disagreeing
have
with you,
another,
I'm not
we're
arguing.
gonna have another 10 or 12, this is gonna continue, these water main breaks are gonna continue until this whole system is replaced. Wesley, am I correct in this?
I mean, the thing is, some places there's sand where we've had breaks, and other places there's nothing. I mean, you've got rocks right up against the side of cast iron, and I've showed you rocks. I've got rocks in my office I can bring in and show you guys where the rocks are right up against the main. I mean, there's one rock that 2/3 of the rock is gone because the water's been spraying. Water is abrasive, and it actually cut a hole right through the side of the rock. You can't deny it wasn't up against the main. It was that close. So, are we gonna continue to have breaks? Do I hope there is no breaks? Yes, I hope there isn't any. But it's inevitable. We have a stainless steel or a steel bolt problem where the bolts are rotting off the valves. Every time we get one, and we have a leak, we repair it, we put all new stainless in. It's just gonna be a continuous problem. It's either you replace it or just keep fixing as you go down the road. It's one way or the other. And right now, we don't have the money, and the monies are not there to replace the whole system. So the only way we can get out of the situation we're in is to keep the water system going, is to repair what we have right now.
Now, there's a very remote chance, and I say it's remote, but
It's remote.
this infrastructure bill that's in the works, there's a possibility if we could get our, if we can get our state politicians to work with us and get us some of this, there's a possibility we can get the kind of money it will take to replace the system. But it's a real long shot, and we gotta have people like Paul Tonko pulling for us. Now, if he'll do that, there's a possibility.
This infrastructure bill is an awful lot of money that they're talking about, and a lot of it is for water and sewer
And the
infrastructure.
county attorney kind of hinted at that when we met with him. He said, look, there's could be money coming down the road, and he said, you're gonna definitely get your COVID relief money, that's for sure. He said, what you need to do is try to find emergency funding in the interim. So this is what we've been working on. We work every single day on this. Every single day we're out working on this. And I think, right, Lou, are we getting close to a solution?
Yes.
And it's the only solution. We'll have a lot of options here.
Angelo Santa Barbara's office has been helping us with this to get us the application, help us with it, to get this emergency funding interest-free. We're gonna have to pay that back though. So, it's not a grant, it's a loan with no interest. We already borrowed, 25,000, was it, in the last meeting?
Yeah.
To pay our bills. That has to be paid back to the general fund. And I'm opposed to taking any money out of the general fund to put into the water department. That's not what that money was for. We did it just to get us by last month. And hopefully, this money will be available once the application. Amsterdam did this. Angelo's office told us. He helped them get over $2.5 million, I think it was, when they had sewage being dumped into the Mohawk River. And he got them the funding to help with the sewer district over there to stop the water, the sewage from going into the Mohawk River. That was $2.5 million he got for him. So hopefully, I don't know if they're paying it back or not, or if the loan was forgiven,
Well, the kind of money that's coming down the pipe, there's a chance that it could get forgiven. So there's a possibility. The point is, there's no chance that we can get through this without borrowing some money on an emergency basis. Zero. We have to pay our personnel, we have to pay our vendors, and right now we cannot do that with the funds we have.
So you have to do it. I mean,
We don't have any choice, we have
of
to
course
do it.
not. You have to do it, so do it.
And that's what we're trying to do.
So, that's where we stand. I just wanted everybody to know that. And it's, like I said, it's not this current town board, and I can't fault the last town board or the previous town boards for any of this. Nobody anticipated this. Everybody figured that the system was gonna last for 100 years like it should last. But unfortunately, it wasn't installed properly. And just the maintenance on keeping the wells up and the pump houses and that, never mind the infrastructure itself with the water lines. And I might add that when they take this, do this, the storage tank, Wesley, would you explain what you have to do with this? Why it's so,
I don't know exactly as far as.
No, I'm talking about what the maintenance department has to do, what you and.
With the water hammer and everything.
Oh, well, what has to be done, everything is gonna have to be run on manually while this work is gonna be done.
So
The projected time frame is 10 to 14 days, and that's working days, so for 3 weeks, there's gonna have to be somebody on call to turn everything on and off manually, because everything has to be turned on in sequence.
To avoid the water hammer, right?
To eliminate any water hammer that may exist, so we don't end up with water main breaks.
And a water hammer, by the way, is what damages pipes and fittings. And we could have more breaks if we
has to
had
be done in
water.
sequence, right?
Everything has to be turned on and turned off in
And you
sequence,
have to do that twice a day?
at least
Because
twice.
Settles Hill has to,
Because Settles Hill will have to sustain the rest of the system. So all the water that we use during the day will come from that tank, other than when it's being refilled. I mean, right now, your tank on Rooter Drive fills between 2 and 4 times a day, depending on how the water usage cycles. And your water tank on Settles Hill fills every 2 days. At the present rate, during the winter, it's every 4 to 5 days. So depending on when they do it, is how much water we go through. I mean, we went from running around, averaging on the low side, 37,000, 40,000 gallons a day during the spring when it was cold, to almost 60,000 a day right now. So your daily average goes up probably a good 70 to 80% once the warm weather hits. So the warmer the weather, the more you gotta keep on top of it, meaning man hours and people to be there around the clock to turn things on and off in sequence to maintain what we presently have.
well, that's an added expense.
As an added expense, and you're talking 2 to 3 weeks that tank is gonna be down.
Well, I think we're all in agreement that we're gonna have to do something to maintain the system, so, we have that.
Do we know, I just want to, do we know how many people have been added to this system since it first started? New users. There's 11 houses near me been added.
You'd have to give me dates, and I can tell
Since
you.
2001?
Sandy, did you?
Since 2001, I can do that pretty quick.
2001 was when the system was initially
I
started.
can
So from
do
that
that
point
real quick.
forward, I'm just curious as to how many people have been added.
I can find out real quick.
I mean, that's a number that should be calculated into the numbers going forward as to what we're gonna do for maintenance. You know, they were paying, more people paying into the system, but they never changed the rate. I think 11 is the right number, isn't it?
11 or 12, right?
Yeah, right around me. Right?
There's more than that. If you figure
No,
all
I
the way
can
down
see.
Texas Road, it's right there.
Can I read it?
Can you read that resolution?
Yeah.
Okay. She's got better eyes than I do. I'm too old to read it. This is a resolution to,
Do you want to explain it before I read it, or? I'm going to read the title.
Yes.
Resolution to authorize the declaration of a state of emergency for the town of Princetown Water District. Whereas the town of Princetown Water District has incurred regular and frequent water main breaks and other necessary repairs to the water system over the past several years, and whereas the cost of continuous repairs, in addition to the original and ongoing cost to maintain and operate the water district properly, in accordance with all applicable laws, rules and regulations, as well as in a manner that ensures public safety and health, has become excessive beyond the monies budgeted, and whereas any further damages and/or unnecessary repairs, as well as current operating deficiencies, could substantially hinder the effective daily operations within the water district, and whereas it may be necessary to declare a state of emergency in connection with certain applications for assistance from state and/or federal programs designed to assist in such circumstances. Whereas the town board now desires to declare a state of emergency with respect to the town of Princetown Water District, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Princetown, or the town board of the town of Princetown hereby declares that a state of emergency exists within the town of Princetown Water District as of June 8th, 2021.
And before we vote on it, let me just explain that this is very important because with these monies that are available, this is something that we have to present. We can present that to everybody involved, and we certainly need it in order to get any emergency loans.
You definitely have to have that.
You have to have it before they give you a loan.
Emergency loan. They won't give it to you unless you declare an emergency.
Did you forward that to Sandy?
Yeah, it's, I emailed it to you earlier.
Is there any further discussion on it?
I'll make the motion. It's very important.
I'll second.
Councilman Convaldi?
Yes.
Councilman Jacoruso?
Yes.
Councilwoman Nora?
Yes.
Councilman Gray? Supervisor Esposito?
Yes. Resolution passed.
Sandy, can you email that to me? Yeah, you're here tomorrow, right?
I have to do the minutes first, though.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be
I
tomorrow.
can send it to you, John.
All right.
Well, no,
I just want to I want to print out a hard copy, so I got it.
Oh,
I can send it to you.
During
I
the,
thought you meant after I'm done with the minutes.
I'll send it to. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Anything else?
In general or about the water?
No? About anything else? You got any comments or concerns?
So Verizon has their high-speed internet, and I think Wes brought that up at one of the meetings. The best thing you can do if you guys are listening at home and you don't have high speed, and I've never had good luck with Spectrum, we have Verizon now, is to contact them. The reason I think we have Verizon up where I live, which is a good bit more rural than down here at the south end, because there's funding out there from the state to get broadband and high-speed internet into the more rural areas, and that's why Verizon did that up through the north end. Yeah, there was some initiative.
Well, how many homes up there have it? Is it widespread up there?
I mean, yeah, I could check, I could look into it a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure it goes all the way up to Reynolds.
What about where Musselbeck and all that, where that?
Do you have Verizon up that way?
We have something better. It's called PTC, Pattersonville Telephone Company. It's an independent, and
Yeah.
I've had both Verizon and Spectrum in the past, and I will never go back, especially to Spectrum, but,
And it's high speed?
it's
Yeah, okay, good.
much better than,
Well, then most of our residents have it,
Well, you don't have it down here.
No, but we have Spectrum.
Yeah, but Spectrum is,
Spectrum is the worst.
yeah.
My bill's $207.
I spend $75 a month for internet, and it's the high-speed internet, it's the Fios. But either way, I would call Verizon
I
again.
think I do 80 a
Huh?
month. I think I do 80 a month for Spectrum, just for internet.
Yeah, but it's probably relatively slow.
Hey, but my sister has Fios and she likes it better, and she's an Alpha.
Yeah, so you gotta contact them, because I think you mentioned getting, and it would help here, because they have much cheaper business plans, than Spectrum. I know we pay a lot of money per month to Spectrum.
Yeah,
here
we
at
pay a
the-
lot of money here.
Yeah. Well, regardless, also, I know you mentioned broadband service, and it's a pretty expensive. I know $230,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not.
No.
And that's all we're getting, which I guess we should be grateful for, but that's it. So the broadband one,
All I can say is think of the kids who are trying to go to school remotely.
yeah. Yeah, if your income's low enough, they have state
Yeah, but
low cost state internet
Still.
or whatever you want to call it. And I would agree with you guys that individually providing funding for,
Once you get into that area of subjectivity, and you have to decide who's gonna get it, who's not gonna get it, we don't have the bandwidth to do that here.
To even attempt to do it.
yeah, it's just we're too.
the schools already got that information though, because they're doing school lunches and stuff, so it's not like you'd have to create a new system.
And then the solar farms, I used to get the letter in the mail, if you join our electric service. National Grid still does the delivery, but they do the supply, and allegedly it's cheaper.
Yep.
I don't know of anything in New York State, though, that gives direct help to residents in the immediate area. And I understand, I appreciate what you say about what goes on in Maine, but we would need, something that's a little more local. And it may be prohibited, because the state put a lot of money into the solar, so there might be strict requirements in place. I'll be honest, I don't know.
You guys are setting the rules for these guys that come in here. You have to give them a building permit, you have to do this, that, and the other thing. All you gotta do is say, and talk to your attorney, I'm sure he can come up with
They're giving
that.
us $30,000 a year over 30 years, it's $1 million, of which every resident is getting some benefit from that.
Especially if they're in the water district, but.
No,
We won't go there.
Has nothing to do with the water district.
It was a
Nothing to do
joke.
with the water.
$30,000 a year,
That goes in the general fund. It's
Goes right
nothing
to the
do
general
with
fund.
water.
and we negotiated that, and that was a pretty tough negotiation to get them up to that high. And that's for 30 years, it's like $1 million.
But that was one guy, right?
That's one farm.
The one down near us.
Right.
But there's others coming.
Well, the one that was going on Reynolds Road is out. They don't have the infrastructure for the power system to put it in.
Rhinex Corners? It's not Reynolds, right, isn't it?
It was Reynolds Corners, yeah, the one there on that S bend.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep saying
That's all.
Reynolds.
Yeah, that one's done. Well,
Supposedly it's done, they don't have they can't hook up to it, am I correct in that? From what I hear,
That's
But
not,
Carol
I haven't
told me.
heard anything final on it, but I know that was their
Carol
issue.
told me that they're backing out of it because they don't have you have to have the power lines to hook up to it.
The three.
There is
There's
no
only so
high
many.
tension power line in that area. Where the Rhinex Corners Road is like,
Yeah, the
Well,
closest
apparently they don't
three phase is too
because,
far away.
They're backing out of it now.
good.
They can't handle it. That's what I'm told. There's nothing before the planning board on it.
But going back to what we were talking about is, the town has some power in this situation. And as you negotiate with these companies, use that power to benefit the town residents. And I said earlier, and I repeat it now, all these solar panel farms are sending their juice down to New York City. And they're cluttering our neighborhood. Now, I support putting in solar. I'd rather that than another coal plant or nuclear plant in my backyard, but let's have the benefit come to the locals. Work on it. You're the town board. You can do
As I
this.
stated, is what I was told from the county, and Jim was there, what I was told from the county, any resident that wants to call up these solar companies, they will give you a 10% discount, but you have to buy your power from them. So every resident can do that. It's not up to the town to do that, it's up to the resident to do that. But you're still gonna have to pay National Grid for the delivery charge. They will do that. I personally would not do that, buy from a solar company. I don't believe in this solar. I saw what it did over here when I was a proponent of it. If I ever had to do it again, I would have never recommended that. We get nothing out of that as far as I'm concerned. Here's what we get out, not in this room, but all of the LED lighting we put in this building reduced our energy bill by a lot. We've got it on our water department, it has done nothing for that. Has it, Wes, as far as?
It costs us about $400 a month.
It hasn't helped, it hasn't helped. What happened is the LED lighting that we got, and we had a grant for that from NYSERDA to help us put that in. And we converted all of the LED, all of these lights, except for these, because they couldn't convert these. The street lights, parking lot lights, and every light in this building, other than this room, is LED lighting. And the only time these are on is court night and town board nights. So, other than that, these lights aren't on. And that's what saves the money. I converted my house to LED lighting about a year and a half ago, right after I saw these going in. I took every light bulb out and put in LED lights. Fluorescent in the cellar, and converted all my lights inside the house over to LED. That's what saves the money. I'm not a proponent of solar at all. You put it on the roofs, and it's just, that's all that does, is shorten the lifespan of the roof. You get mold underneath it. From a 30-year or 25-year roof, you'll probably be lucky if you get 15 years out of it, or 12 years out of it, because it never gets any sun. That's all you get is moisture underneath it, and you get mold, and you have to replace the roof. And what happens when you have to replace the roof? You got to take off the solar panels.
So there's a limited number of properties in the town that can take on these large solar farms because of how the law was written. I mean, for what it's worth, if something comes in soon, we can certainly ask what these solar companies have done in other
It's
municipalities.
been done in other places, and I didn't have an example in New York, but I've got ones in Oregon, Washington, several in Canada, Maine, New Hampshire. I'll look for New York.
Yeah.
If that's what you're really feel
Well,
like
because
you need.
usually the precedent has to be there, So if they did something in Canajoharie, well, you did this here, and so we want this as well.
But
But
yeah,
we can
it
always,
wouldn't hurt us.
if another big solar comes in, we can always ask.
Yeah.
There's no harm in that. They may
That's
say,
all I'm
no.
asking.
They could say, here's where in state law you're not allowed to directly benefit a resident. I don't know. I'm not well versed in New York State solar law, but there's no harm in asking should another big solar farm come in.
We limited it to 100 acres anyway, because most people didn't want solar in this town.
Yeah, there's only a handful of properties where they could
That could
really.
take and put this in.
But there's no harm in asking should another company come in. Because I get it, and they should. If you're in the immediate area, they should send you a freaking check, but, I don't know if that's common practice or not. But I do understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
Okay,
So I don't know if I,
anything else? Ben, you got anything else?
I don't know, hold on. No, I don't think so.
Jim?
No.
Doug? Nicole? I don't have anything else either, so, is there a,
I'll
motion?
make the motion.
Is there a second?
Councilman Cavoli?
Yes.
Councilman Jack Russo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
Yeah.
Supervisor Escobedo?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.